What's up guys, T-Rex with House Rules Gaming here, and after my last video, I started going through all of the various blog posts that came out post the reveal trailer, and although there were some nice little nuggets of information that we were able to gather from that, it wasn't quite enough to do a full video breaking down those blog posts individually, without sounding super repetitive, and would also require a healthy amount of speculation, as we got very little stake amongst a whole bunch of sizzle, if you know what I mean. Now here are some of the cliff notes from those blog posts for those of you that are still wondering. We got an updated AI system which affects game awareness, stamina, and home field advantage. We got two different broadcast teams, Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler for the bigger games. We got Reese Davis, Jesse Palmer, and David Pollock for your smaller games. There is no ESPN license, so we won't be getting quote unquote game day, but all of the commentators have been individually contracted by EA, so we could get something like game day represented. We have game modes like Dynasty, Road to Glory, and Ultimate Team returning, with a new playoff challenge mode called Road to the College Football Playoff, but we don't have a ton of details on that yet. The online Dynasty mode is not crossplay, which initially was upsetting because I know everybody out there had already been planning their leagues out with friends across console. But it did take Madden some time to get that implemented, which I could potentially see that coming down the line in an update later on this year. But don't hold your breath on that one. And there's also a 32-man limit for those online dynasties, which is up from the previous 12, which I was hoping for more, but it was already hard enough to get 12 people to agree to do the same thing at one time, let alone 32. So that's going to be a unique challenge all in and all of itself. Team Builder is making its much anticipated return, but those teams can only be used in offline play now or in private dynasties, which I'm hoping that means that there will be a differentiation between a privately hosted online dynasty and a publicly hosted one where just anybody can join, because I did have big plans for a Team Builder dynasty. So these blog posts have actually left me with more questions than I have answers, which is what I want to go over with you all today. But I want you guys to pause for a second and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so that you can take part in the giveaway, which we're only a few spots away in our bingo to being able to give away multiple copies of this game. So please check back for future updates. Now on to the video. So the first details I need to find out more about are in Road to Glory. And not because it's my most favorite, but between that and Dynasty, Road to Glory absolutely lacked the most amount of depth. So I want to know how long they plan this game mode out to be. A lot of what's been said in the blog post and by some of the insiders that have gotten to speak to the development team about this game, they keep mentioning the concept of replayability and how much more deeper this mode is. And when I hear of the word deeper when referencing this game mode, I would hope that that would mean us starting this mode as a freshman in high school. I, for one, am of the opinion that this mode is entirely too short, because unlike the other sports games, quote unquote career modes, your Road to Glory campaign ends after your senior year in college. With them adding your full senior year in high school, that gave you 5 seasons to experience this at most. Whereas in those other sports games, you could have 10 plus years to build your player's legacy. And don't just give us this vanilla experience of just playing the regular season games and our playoffs. Expand that a bit. The life of a D1 college recruit is filled with a bunch of off-season camps that they would attend. So I would like to see them incorporate some kind of Nike Elite 11 camp, as well as possibly some on-campus camps at some of the schools that you have offers to as well. And if your recruit is rated high enough, we should be able to get to play in some All-American games and give us the opportunity to commit to a school mid-game. I also want to know if they're going to open up the positions that we can play as in Road to Glory this time around. In the past, we've been able to play just about every position on the defense, but the offense doesn't get that same level of love. Now, I know it might not be the most glamorous thing to play offensive line, but there are guys out there that actually play that position for real and want to be able to recreate that in this game. As well as tight end has also become so important to the game, as they are seen as some of the most important weapons on a team nowadays, becoming that safety blanket for the quarterback in critical down situations. Now, Dynasty mode is where my brain really gets to wondering. One key call out that I cannot stop focusing on is in the Campus Huddle blog post that released after the initial trailer drop. In the Dynasty mode section, they specifically call out, create a coach, take control, upgrade their abilities, and build a powerhouse college football program. Establish your coaching staff. Now, I hope this means what myself and a lot of others in the community really want, have been asking for since we heard that this game was coming back, and that is both hiring your own staff and being able to start out as a position coach in Dynasty. The inclusion of the coaching carousel and the ability to start your career as a coordinator was an extremely nice add-on to Dynasty mode, because it gave you a sense of, I'm working towards a bigger job than what I'm starting out at. But if anyone has played these games is even close to as much as I have, then you all know that even starting out as an offensive or defensive coordinator, it does not take very long for you to start getting top tier coaching jobs if you're actually good at the game, regardless of the difficulty that you play on. So I would like to be able to start at an even lower level than a coordinator, ideally a position coach, and have us player lock that position that we're the coach of, versus controlling the entire offense or the entire defense. And when you eventually do grow to become a head coach at a program, allow me to hire and fire my staff according to how I want my program run. If I want to hire an offensive coordinator that specializes in the air raid, let me hire my own versus forcing me to use whatever coach that the coaching carousel decided to give me, and allow me to choose whether I want to run their playbook or my own, and let there be some buffs and some nerfs to stats accordingly. Like, I hire an offensive coordinator that specializes in the air raid, but I choose to run an option playbook. There should be some attribute nerfs when I choose to do something like that. And same with the position coaches, but maybe in a different way. There used to be a setting in which you could change that you could designate what type of players you wanted to recruit at that position. Like if you wanted speed receivers versus possession catch receivers, or mobile quarterback versus a pocket passer, your position coaches should have designations on what type of players that they're good with working with, and that should also affect recruiting. I could go into that a lot deeper, but I'll actually probably save that for a longer wish list video in the future. But they definitely need to put more emphasis on the build your program part of that. I need to know how much customization is there in that Dynasty mode. One thing that's always bothered me, and I know it bothers a lot of other people because I see it in their videos constantly, but can we upgrade our stadiums as the programs get better? Schools in real life, when the football program starts to do better, they start generating more revenue. With that added revenue growth, they start to make additions to the stadium and they're even able to house more fans. Ideally, I would like to see some sort of stadium creator, but I know that may not be possible in the first iteration of the game. That's probably not something that they focused on the most, or that they focused on at all. But maybe give us a selection of a bunch of different pre-rendered stadiums that we could choose from. Kind of like how they do with Madden when you relocate your team, or if you decide to upgrade your stadium altogether in the same city. But with those pre-rendered stadiums, because this is a college game and there's so many different teams that we're dealing with on a single game, I think we need a healthy amount of options to choose from, with some maybe not having major differences between them, but slight differences between the architecture. But I believe choosing the stadium and the landscape around it need to be separate. You should be able to drop any stadium within a given, set options for campuses. But we should also be able to upgrade our facilities too. Like in NCAA basketball, another game that was developed by EA had it built in to where you could earn points in order to improve your school's weight room and other things around campus that would affect the grades that your school is given in order to attract more recruits. Now, I didn't play NCAA basketball at all, but I believe there also might have been some stat increases that came along with improving your training facility in there as well. But building the program should actually mean literally building up your program. Now I want to put this thing right here because I didn't really know where else to fit it in the video, and I didn't think it deserved its own video either. But after watching the trailer, this kind of stuck out to me and it really got me thinking about it as something we absolutely need more information on. So in my last video, I made a reference on how some of the developers said that they put an extra focus into ensuring that coordinated crowd designs were represented accurately. And that was in reference to the University of Tennessee fans wearing their checkerboard pattern within the stadium layout on game days. And that made me think about the one shot that we had at the Penn State game. Historically speaking, Penn State whiteout games are for an important matchup during a night game. Now in the shot here, you can obviously see it is a night game. Now I'm giving this team, the development team that is, every benefit of the doubt when it comes to this game, unless proven otherwise, because it is clear that these guys are absolutely nutty college football fans like the rest of us, and I think that they would get this right. But it is still EA, and I believe they potentially did one out of three things. Number one, they could have done the lazy thing and made Penn State's crowd permanently white. Now I don't think that's the case, as that's something that would be called out immediately, not only by Penn State fans but by college football fans alike, as they know that the crowd doesn't always do that in their games, and I believe these developers care too much to do something like that. Number two, which I think is the most likely, and that would be they would set it to where the crowd wears the all white automatically anytime that there's a night game. Now I think this is the most reasonable explanation and what they most likely did. However, that begs another question for me. Now I'm not only thinking of Penn State when it comes to this, but I think LSU would be another huge beneficiary of this as well. But are they going to allow us to pick the game time when customizing our schedule in the preseason and dynasty mode? Now I think this is a reasonable added level of detail that we can expect, as for one, we're already able to select our game time in play now mode. If we could schedule time slots when making our schedule, setting LSU Alabama at nighttime in Death Valley would be game shattering. And knowing that I have control over that when building my schedule out is that much sweeter. And the pro here with not actually having the networks involved in the creation of this game is that we don't have to adhere to current network contracts when it comes to when games are scheduled and what matchups get scheduled for what time frame. Or the alternatives to selecting the game's time, maybe give us the option to select a crowd theme when scheduling these games in the off season. But I wouldn't like that nearly as much as being able to pick the time, as the themes really only apply to certain schools like Tennessee and Penn State. And last but not least, the thing I cannot wait to get my hands on the most, and that is Team Builder. And that's something that was a little bit disheartening, but I'm still holding out hope that we get a lot more, is that Mike Straw in his recent live stream made mention that Team Builder was going to be basic but enough to keep fans happy, which Team Builder, the website, in my opinion, was actually pretty good. It just needed more. Now he did, however, mention that Team Builder was likely going to get released prior to the game coming out, most likely the first week in July. And here's some of that more that I'm looking for in Team Builder. How many logo slots are we going to get? I would say a good minimum for that would be 4 or 5. I would be okay with 4, but ideally I would like a 5 or 6, just because I have a full logo sheet planned out for my fictional school. And with the added visual depth of this game, I would like to see in a stadium a lot of the alternate logos and word marks that schools use. Or I see a lot of alternate logos and word marks that schools use that I would like my team builder team to also have shown off in their stadium. And not just on the stadium, alternate helmets, alternate jerseys, etc. And with that being said, how many different uniform variations can we get? Now, I'm not saying that we have to have a wardrobe available to us like Oregon, but more than 3, I would hope. I would say with nowadays uniforms being as big as they are for schools, at least give me the option for 10 different jerseys, 6 different helmets, and maybe 6 different sets of pants, and socks and gloves and all that too. Again, I don't need more complicated, I need more options. And please, EA, can we please choose a uniform template as our base when building our custom schools? For one, it looks awkward when you have a team running around with a jersey that doesn't even look like it belongs in the same space as what you have other teams wearing. For example, the relocation teams in Madden, their uniforms look out of place. Yes, they're not real actual football uniforms, but they don't even look like they belong because they lack the branding that the other teams in the NFL have. Number one, I hate having to waste a logo spot just to upload a Nike swoosh or an Under Armour symbol to make it look like somewhat my created school belongs with the others. But even then, the uniform material doesn't even match. Give me a platform as a base to work off of, like a Nike Vapor Fusion or a Vapor Untouchable, and whatever Under Armour and Adidas uses for their platforms. Just don't make it so obvious that it is a created team. I also want to know, are we going to have team builder slots again? Am I going to be limited on the amount of teams that I can import into the base game? If so, how many of them can we import? And when playing with these team builder teams in Dynasty, can I add them to my Dynasty without removing existing teams? Granted, there's a few that I don't mind getting rid of, but I don't want to be forced to have to remove teams in order to add my team builder team in there. And how many team builder teams can I add to a Dynasty? Can I remove every single school that's in there and create an entire Dynasty file with all team builder teams? Maybe not in this iteration of the game, but I think they should absolutely consider that for something in the future. While on Dynasty, I did forget 2 things that I wanted to mention back when I was talking about that earlier. One of them is playoff expansion. Now again, Mike Straw in his live stream mentioned that he doesn't believe that there is playoff expansion, but I took that with a huge grain of salt, as he even mentioned himself that he was only shown one play from the game, one little bit of gameplay from the game, and that he wasn't shown anything else. So I'm still holding out hope that we get some sort of playoff expansion and being able to shrink the playoff pool as well, as we did just go from having 4 playoff teams to 12. I, for one, wasn't a fan of the 12-team playoff. I always thought that 8 was perfect, and I want to be able to adjust my playoff size down to 8. And I believe that was one of the first things that they had talked about implementing when mentioning that they were bringing this game back. So I hope that they kept on track with that and allowed us to be able to do that in the game. And if we can expand it, what's the limit on it? Can we go up to 64 like the tournament, like March Madness? Personally, I would never do that. I think at most I would go up to a 16-team playoff. But I think, like I said earlier, 8 is the perfect amount. And finally, I want to know about conference customization. Now, I absolutely do believe that we will have some form of conference realignment in the game. But what we got in NCAA 14 was extremely limited, especially in comparison to what the college football landscape looks like now, where we have the Pac-12 barely existing anymore, to the point that I don't even know that they could be called a conference, and the Big Ten going on up to 20 schools. My main questions on conference realignment are, Are we going to be limited to the amount of teams that we can add to a conference? Could we just create one massive super conference if we wanted to? And could we fully disband a conference if we so choose? And with disbanding a conference, could we form a completely new conference that we're able to upload a custom logo to, just like we have in Team Builder? Those last two are probably the most important to me, because I do a lot of relocation within my dynasty modes, where I have a dice rolling system that simulates the voting on whether or not a team gets to stay in the conference or whether that conference accepts new members. The creation and deletion of conferences is absolutely by far the most important thing to me. While in the process of editing this video, I was watching some breakdowns by DM Gaming, which if you aren't subscribed to him, I highly suggest you go over there and subscribe to his page, as he not only makes great content based on college football, but also some Dragon Ball stuff as well. But it got me to thinking about the helmet stickers that schools wear like Ohio State, as well as the things like the captain's patches on the jerseys too. Let's start with the patches. Now, what I really need to know is, will we be able to designate captains for our team, and would we be able to go through and potentially switch those per game? Because we haven't been able to do that in the college football games for quite a while now. I believe it was on the older versions on PS2 where they would allow us to designate team captains. But something I don't recall seeing in the trailer at all are those captain patches. Although you clearly see your cover athlete in Travis Hunter wearing one, but in the in-game screenshot, you don't see him wearing it at all. Now, as far as the helmet stickers go, in the past, they've always appeared randomly on each player's helmets. Will we now see players earn those stickers based on on-field performance? To me, it doesn't really matter either way, just because as long as that aspect is in the game, that there are stickers present. But it would be really nice to see someone at the beginning of the season go from no stickers to having almost the entire back half of their helmet filled with stickers. And that's gonna do it for me, guys. What are some things that you guys still need to know about this game? Please leave those down in the comment section below. I for one can't wait till we get the next information dump. And if you like this type of content and want to see more of it in the future, please like the video, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications so you don't have to miss out. Stay blessed, y'all. I'm out of here.